What were the 5 best horror films of 2014? Well, we are here to tell you.
Welcome to Fright Club, a show that celebrates the great horror movies you might have missed. I'm Hope Madden.
And my name is George Wolf, and we are from madwolf.com. And we thought since this was the debut episode, we would just start in with looking at the 5 best horror films from last year. A new year, it's always a good time. You always have the list of things, the best, the worst. But really, looking back at 2014, would you say it was a good year for horror movies?
You know, it was. It's funny, though, and one of the reasons that I think this countdown fits the general idea of our show is that most of the really great ones were not big studio films. You know, Annabelle was fine. It was a fine movie, but it wasn't great. And honestly, the studios didn't put out the kind of major horror output that they have in the last couple of years. Devil's Due was terrible.
Terrible.
You know, they were just, most of the studio output was pretty anemic, not a lot going on, but there were a lot of great indie movies and a lot of great foreign horror movies this year.
Yeah.
And a lot of great first-time directors this year, a lot of great women directors this year, which is a fun change of pace.
Especially at number 1, which we'll get to. Very much so. But just to give you a little bit of background, we're based in Columbus, Ohio, and Fright Club actually began as a monthly film festival. We feature once a month here at a local theater in Columbus. We feature a horror movie that we think didn't get enough due.
Right. Really great ones. Not campy ones, not goofy ones, but really, really good horror movies that we just don't think enough people saw.
Yeah.
So if you're in Columbus, Ohio on the 4th Saturday of any month, stop by the Drexel Theater and we'll show you a good time.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So anyway, we've taken it onto the podcasting route and excited about that. So we've got our little list here, and we're going to start counting them down. What's at number 5?
Number 5, I'm excited about this. Fans of horror, like longtime horror movie geeks, know Peter Jackson not because of The Lord of the Rings, but because of his Kiwi output. His first several films were very body fluid oriented splatter horror comedies.
Yeah.
And New Zealanders have picked that up in the last couple of years. And I really think that one of the most intelligent, most fun, most clever horror films to come out of that nation in years came out this year. It's called Housebound.
What are you going to do against a hostile spirit?
I'm going to smash it in the face.
Yeah, so that little clip there, that sets you up with the general idea. She's housebound in this house. And
she's been arrested. It's a
happening.
series of arrests, and so they decided that what they need to do with her is send her home to her mom, who's adorable, but believes that the house is haunted. And the longer she's there, she's stuck there. You're feeling claustrophobic with her. She's just dying to get out and get away. And then little by little, she starts to think maybe her mom is not crazy. She believes. And, you know, it's one of those movies where we really can't, if you probably didn't get a chance to see it. You really need to get a chance to see it. And we can't tell you much more about it because it spoils too many things. But it's a clever plot. It's very funny. It's very, action-packed and yet really claustrophobic.
And really, this is the kind of movie that is perfect for, not to pat ourselves on the back, but perfect for things like we do, where we bring these in to let a crowd see them, because this is a movie that's fun to see with a crowd.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Because you will get people yelling at the screen, having a great time, hooping and hollering.
And so many times in a movie like this, the payoff isn't worth it. And in this case, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's really, really enjoyable. It's an enjoyable, fun, funny.
Clever and funny. And that's why I say it really brings people to the point of really having a good time with each other, because you're all just screaming, when things start happening.
It's a good crowd movie. It really is.
Now, we know that might not be possible. So if you only can see it maybe on home video or streaming or whatever.
And it is recently released. It's available right now on DVD, video on demand, everything like that.
But if it's a chance to maybe have a little house party of your own, maybe to get the popcorn or whatever and get ready to have a great time.
Yeah, Housebound.
It's definitely one that you will enjoy seeing with a crowd if you can. So that's at number 5. Let's move on.
Yeah, number 4 is quite a change of pace from Housebound. Number 4 is an Israeli film called Big Bad Wolves.
I found love.
And this is one, it's funny because if you look it up on IMDb, it's not categorized as a horror movie. And I think that's because the horror is not necessarily on the screen, but it is tremendously dark subject matter, incredibly like the darkest imaginable subject matter. And I think one of the things that makes the film so sort of disquieting is that it's also really funny. And in the most just sort of jarring ways, you find yourself laughing. And it's sort of a predator and prey. It's bullies. And it's called Big Bad Wolves because very often they make allusions to fairy tales. But basically, there's a series of crimes in an Israeli town, horrific crimes and murders of children. And one police officer suspects a teacher. And the teacher is sort of a milquetoasty guy. The police officer is really breaking the law and trying to apprehend him. And then the father of one of the deceased girls gets involved. And what happens is ruthless and amazing and funny and awful and just impeccably written. And like I say, almost alarmingly funny. It's a challenging movie. It's a dark movie. So, if you're feeling a little blue at the end of the day, this might not be a good choice for you. But if you're interested in just a brilliant, really well-written, challenging horror film, I can't recommend this more highly.
Now, if you're thinking the storyline might sound a little bit familiar, you may have seen the American movie Prisoners with Hugh Jackman.
Boy, that's a dark double bill right there.
That's a dark double bill. Just similar to the fact that there is some crimes against children, and a father gets involved and wants to take out his own. He's not satisfied that the law is doing enough, so he wants in those ways. Now, Prisoners is not funny.
No,
if you've seen Prisoners, it is not funny, but it is very, very dark and just weighs on you. And by the time you're done, you really felt like you've been 15 rounds. So it's just similar in the subject matter, but it's like you say, this one.
And
is
it's funny,
strangely funny.
Yeah, the humor in this almost makes it sort of more unsettling of a film, that you find yourself chuckling regardless of what it is you're watching on screen. It's a little bit, and you know what, it is fairly similar in a lot of ways to Prisoners. Just as an FYI, again, if you think you're going to pick it up. You've seen Prisoners, you're like, I don't think I want to sit through that again. You might want to avoid this. But
it's interesting
it's great.
How often, if you just were talking to someone, just on the street or whatever, and you mention, a horror movie that's actually funny, it's interesting how often that can be done. And it can be done well, obviously, as it's done here. But you wouldn't think, just off the top of your head, that those two things go hand in hand. But
except for
can.
like the crazy, the sort of splatter
I'm not
comedies.
talking about the splatter comedies, like Shaun of the Dead.
And if that is something that you like a horror comedy, this is not what it is. This is not a horror comedy in a traditional sense at all. Actually, I can't think of a horror film quite like this, to be honest with you. But because you're right, it's very difficult to do. And one of the great things about this film is it uses it to the advantage of the horror of the film. It makes you more uncomfortable with what you're watching because there are funny moments in it. Yeah,
so that's an Israeli film, as you said, from last year. At number 4, that is Big Bad Wolves. So moving on up, number 3, another foreign film.
Another actually Middle Eastern film. The film at number 3 is called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Yeah, and right there, the first thing, I love the title.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so evocative of wherever place your mind wants to go. A girl walks home alone at night. Ooh, that could lead to bad things.
Yeah.
Well, it can, but in this case, not necessarily for the girl.
No.
Because this is, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, the first Iranian vampire movie?
That is correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
So we've given that away, but I don't think that's too much.
No.
The girl in this case is a vampire.
Yeah.
And she's great. The young woman that plays her is great. And how it's framed, how it's shot. It's beautifully shot and framed in a lot of dark. Obviously, vampires exist in the darkness, and that's used to great effect. And she travels a little bit in the world of the underworld. there's a kind of a pimp and drug guy
it's
involved.
funny because it's set in a fictional Iranian town called Bad Town, and it's it's very much a fictional town. It's like a Wild West. It's like a ghost town. It's a modern day, but it's like a modern day Iranian ghost town. The only people who are left in town really are sort of the dregs of society. But it's unpopulated. There's just almost no one there except this girl, and these other sort of fringe type people, which make for perfect prey. They really it's set up really quite beautifully, and the way that it is filmed, it's a black and white film. And if you're thinking, oh, pretentious, it's not what it is. It's it's got a little bit of a Jim Jarmusch about it, but it also really kind of calls back old spaghetti westerns in the soundtrack, in the way that the camera moves.
Not a lot of dialogue.
Nope.
A lot of silence and a lone stranger.
Yeah.
Things like that. That crosses paths with someone, and it's really, vampire movies have been around forever, but so you're always looking for a new twist, which we'll get to another one here in a little bit. But this is a great one.
It is.
It's a new twist on things, and it's great to see because as the impression this character gives off when people see her walking is of helpless, and maybe she needs assistance, or she's easy prey. And obviously she's not. And they also do a great contrast between when she's walking with her headscarf, her shawl around, to cover her face, and then when she takes it off and to reveal her full, very soft features, pretty face and everything. That's used, I think, to great effect as well.
Yeah, and the big, the flowing robes. At one point, she just hops on a skateboard.
That's great.
And not only is that sort of funny and charming, but it's a great image because you can't see the skateboard with all the the flowing robes, and she's just moving smoothly up the. It's a great shot. It's a really stylistic film. It's one of the films that we're going to talk about by a female director. And there are not a lot of female directors, period, but there certainly are not a lot in the genre. And her name is Anna Lily Amirpour. And she really, obviously she's a cinephile. I mean, if you watch the movie, you're going to see callbacks to just dozens and dozens of movies. Yeah. But the fact is, her cultural sort of vision automatically changes everything that she's pulling in. And none of it doesn't look like an homage really, but it definitely doesn't look like a ripoff. It's just a new, fresh way of cobbling these ideas together. It's such a fun movie. Yeah.
And it also has, things in it that might remind you of either Let Me In or Let the Right One In, depending on which of those you've seen, the American version or the original foreign film. But there are things that remind me of that as well, with the younger vampire getting involved with a friend who she's not going to prey on, and where it goes from there. So you may, if you've seen those movies, you'll see a little bit of those movies in this as well. But yeah, highly recommended. This was, especially that skateboard. When she's rolling down on that skate, it was great.
It was great.
Not laugh out loud, but anybody that has seen this movie, you can always just say, hey, this vampire on a skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. So that is number 3, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Very highly recommended. And we'll stay with vampires for number 2.
How can you have lived for so long and still not get it? You've been pretty lucky in love, though, if I may say so.
Only Lovers Left Alive by the great Jim Jarmusch. And it's funny, you are not a big fan of vampire movies.
Well,
generally speaking.
Okay, they have to be good. Yeah,
no,
I certainly don't like Twilight. I mean,
but I also think that it's really a genre that's gotten stale.
Yeah,
like very stale.
Yeah, that's true. Because honestly, now that you mention it, when I wrote my print review for this movie, I think my opening sentence was not vampires again.
That's right.
Because you get, no, what are we going to do this time? And we just got done telling you about a vampire movie that was done well. And this one, really from the opening shot.
Which is glorious.
The way it's framed, and he comes down from above, and the everything is circling, almost like a 45 record going around. And it's Tilda Swinton, so you've got me right there.
Right.
Because she's awesome.
Yep.
As one vampire, and Tom Hiddleston
as Eve.
Eve, yeah. And Tom Hiddleston is the other,
who's also always great.
Oh, and they're perfect looking. I mean, you think about them. They would make great looking vampires, and they are lovers. They're a couple, but they are separated by a great distance.
Right.
She's living on one part of the world, and he's living in Detroit.
And that's one of the things that I think is great about it. Just like this imagined town, this ghost town in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, is that, Detroit has become really a city of the dead. And that's what they sort of wink and a nod. That's what they kind of point out in this movie. I mean, you can get away with the way they're living because, there's not a lot else left there. A lot of empty, streets, a lot of boarded up buildings, a lot of just dogs roaming the roads. I mean, what they do with that is pretty great.
Yeah, and then Jim Jarmusch, who, if you don't know, is from Toledo, Ohio, which is not far from Michigan. And so he makes a little, like you say, some wink and nods jokes about, they mention Jack White in the movie. So it's got a very modern sensibility to it. But anyway, they're separated by a great distance. And of course, they've been alive for hundreds of years. And then Tilda Swinton's Eve decides to come visit him for the first time in a while. And there are two vampires who have given up preying on people for their blood. And there's a good reason for that, one that actually makes sense.
Right.
I know that's been used in other vampire movies, but no, this time, in many ways, I thought as I was watching this, it's just a logical, if he sat down and said, okay, let's say vampires really did exist today, how might they live? And this is a logical extension of what, okay, I can see that.
Yep.
As much as it has fun with the genre, it's so well shot, again, with dark shades.
Oh, yeah. And they're the coolest.
They're the coolest.
It's like
he's a musician.
He's a musician.
And, of course, he's reclusive, so he's underground, which makes him all the more appealing to the hipsters.
Yeah.
And it's got Mia Wasikowski. I hate that to mispronounce her name. And also Anton Yelkin as supporting actors. Not a large cast, but they're great. And of course, the two leads. John Hurt, is another older vampire with a very interesting backstory, which may cause some smiles. But it's done so well, and the ending. I'm not going to give it away. We're not going to give it away, but the ending is just pitch perfect.
It is.
I loved it.
And it's funny. It is one of the best films I saw all of last year.
Oh, yeah.
And
nobody saw it.
Nobody saw it.
It's a crime.
It's to be honest with you, it is just barely a horror film. I mean, obviously, it's included because it's a vampire movie, which is full on is, and there is some death but there's really only one or two scenes that could be truly considered horror.
Yeah.
But it's just so great. I love it so much when a truly gifted, brilliant director decides he's going to make a horror film. I love that, and that's what this is. If you haven't seen a lot of Jim Jarmusch films, you just should.
Yeah,
They're
should.
all great, and this is another of the great ones.
Yeah, well, and as we were saying before, not just horror, but vampire movies in general, which are such a staple in cinema.
Yeah,
and we've got two here that give it a fresh take, and this one especially. To repeat myself, I really thought this is an interesting take on how they might actually live today, if they were around. If I'm not saying they're not,
and it's a funny thing if you look over the whole year, the best in the genre, not that horrific, really. I mean, we've obviously evolved past the horror porn of, the late 90s, beginning of the 2000s, and just not a lot of real blood and guts terror this year, which is fine. I mean, and I certainly have nothing against films like that. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is maybe my all-time favorite movie, but it was an interesting year because they were the really good ones were more thoughtful and spooky. You're gonna get some blood and other bodily fluids, as you seem to always do in New Zealand movies. And Housebound, you're going to see a bit of that. But the others are more cerebral and spooky. But the spookiest of all is where the movie we have perched at number one.
What do you want? You're trespassing in my house!
It isn't real. It isn't real. It isn't real.
Yes, the best horror film of last year and the best horror film in quite a while is The Babadook. And this one, I would hesitant to say that it's really underseen or overlooked because it seems to me that it's really getting some some attention, and hopefully come awards time, might even get some more.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's not a blockbuster. It's not going to make $100 million. It's not going to do what, Annabelle or others like that saw. It's not going to be like that. But for an independent, foreign, low-budget horror movie, it has taken off internationally, and that's really honestly because it is so fresh. It's such an interesting film, and it's so incredibly well made.
Yeah, and actually, we are members of the group, the Central Ohio Film Critics Association. We just got together and did our yearly awards, and we awarded Essie Davis, who plays the mother in The Babadook, as Best Actress of the Year. And we awarded The Babadook as the Best Overlooked Movie of the Year. So hopefully, and I was noticing, I was on the Facebook page of the movie a couple days ago, and it's starting to rack up these awards.
Yeah, it's true.
It really is. So like you say, it's getting some attention. Not going to be a blockbuster, but boy, it's worth checking out. And it's great because it is all rooted in a children's book.
It is. It's funny. So Jennifer Kent, first-time feature director. She wrote and directed the movie. She's out of Australia. And I think that she brings a really unique perspective. The story is about a single mother with sort of a troublesome boy. And
well, let's just say, in the first few minutes, I wanted to throttle this kid. Let me tell you, they do a great job of letting you identify with the mother because she's a single mother, like you said. He's a handful, and you just want to throttle him.
Before we go any further, we should say, so Essie Davis won for Best Actress for the Central Ohio Film Critics Association. She is absolutely brilliant.
She's great.
Pitch perfect. But the thing is, too, Noah Wiseman is the boy who plays her son, also could not have been any better. He could not have been any better. And he's terrified to go to bed at night. He's quite a handful. It causes a lot of problems. He beats up kids in his class. He's always trying to arm himself against the monsters that he believes are coming for him. And somehow, one night when she's reading him his 11th book before he has to fall asleep, he grabs a book off the shelf called The Babadook.
And its basic little phrase is, if it's in a title,
it's in a glance or in a look.
In a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. And it's a pop-up children's book as they're reading it.
Creepy as hell.
So these creepy things pop out at them, and the basic gist of the book is, if you let this Babadook into your house, you are not going to get rid of him. And so it starts getting weirder and weirder until the mother starts thinking, yeah, there's something going on here. And she tries to get rid of the book, and the book keeps popping up in the house. And it's so well done. Again, not a blood and guts horror movie at all.
It's a very disturbing movie.
Yes.
And I think because it's funny because there's a subtext in the film that is really right under the surface and is so beautifully handled and deeply disturbing.
Yep.
And also the cinematography is really great. It's just slightly distorted, gives everything everything in the house a little bit of a menacing feel about it.
Yeah.
And there's the sound, the Babadooky sound. It's just creepy. And just beginning to end, including a fairly challenging ending.
It is, and it will be one that I think, frankly, a lot of people might miss what we think the real main point is, but it's certainly one that is going to cause some discussion.
Yeah.
About why.
I think it was perfect. I think
it was perfect.
The ending was perfect.
But
the performances were perfect.
I've read some other reviews and some other people talking about that I think missed the point.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's by design. A lot of times filmmakers will leave it ambiguous for a reason.
Oh yeah.
But I really think that she was making a point here that I hope people don't miss. But at the very least, it'll cause some great discussion, and you'll just enjoy a really, really enjoyable,
like a primal
creepy,
fear, kind of.
Primal fear. And no less than, I read a quote from William Friedkin, who, of course, directed The Exorcist, one of the greatest ever, who I believe he said, if it wasn't one of, he might have said it was the scariest movie he's ever seen.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's not. Maybe if he didn't say that, he said it was one of. I know that he gave it high praise,
and rightly so.
And rightly so, because, like you said, different things are scary to different people.
Mm-hmm.
But when you tap into a primal fear, like you're talking about, that's just basic to the human condition,
Yep.
Then you've really touched a nerve, and you don't need to spill a lot of blood.
No,
do it.
it's a thing. It's actually quite a simple film. Very few sets. It's very simple and really effective.
Yeah, really effective.
Yeah.
So
see it.
See it, and hopefully it's going to get some more attention here as we get into this serious award season. I hope so. I really do. Because quite frankly, in this year is a year that is a little weak on Best Actress nominees. So it might give her a chance to pop in there because she is not weak.
No.
It's not a really crowded field.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So hopefully she might get some love there. We hope so. And the filmmaker, Jennifer Kent, is certainly on a list of people that you want to watch.
Oh, yeah,
What
absolutely.
is she going to do next?
What's she doing
Because
next?
If this is the way we get to know her, we want to see more. And not to say that she's always going to have to do these type of creepy movies.
Oh,
She
no.
can do a romantic comedy, but I want to see
Whatever she does next.
Yeah, what she's got.
Yeah,
up her
she's a
sleeve
total
next.
package.
Yeah. So run it down again. There you go. At number 5 was
Housebound. Number 4, The Big Bad Wolves.
Yep.
Number 3, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
And number 2, Only Lovers Left Alive. And number 1, The Babadook. Definitely all worth checking out if they're available, if they're streaming, if they're to rent, or maybe on a...
Or if some nice independent movie theater is showing one, a little horror marathon, you would definitely want to check it out.
Check it out. That's right. And we love to hear from you. You can find us on Twitter. We are at Mad Wolf. That is MADDWOLF. We're also on Facebook at Mad Wolf Columbus, since we're based in Columbus, Ohio. Go Bucks. And
or you can just hit up the website at madwolf.com.
Again, 2Ds, madwolf.com. And we always love talking about the horror movies.
You're not lying.
So hit us up if you can. And until next time, I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is Fright Club. See ya.